All right, you guys ready? Good afternoon. I'm United States Attorney Trinity Ross. Today, a federal jury returned a verdicts against Khalid Abu غانم and Adham Abu غانم on the charges against them in an indictment. Adham Abu غانم was convicted of one count of conspiracy to kidnap a United States citizen from a foreign country and conspiracy to kidnap a United States citizen. Khalid Abu غانم was convicted of the 2 counts of conspiracy to kidnap, along with being convicted of a 3rd count of threatening to retaliate against a victim. I'm joined here today by FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Kristen Perino, Diplomatic Security Service Special Agent, Ed Sussman, and AUSA's Maeve Huggins and Charlie Crewley. I'm just going to give you a little summary of the facts of this case. In September of 2021, at the direction of Khalid Abu غانم, Adham Abu غانم assisted in the kidnapping of a 21-year-old victim who is an American citizen and a family member by tricking the victim to leave the location where she was located in Mexico and to return to the United States. Once back in the United States, the defendants took the victim back to their family home in Lackawanna, New York, where she was held against her will. After kidnapping the victim from Mexico, the defendants further tricked the victim into traveling with them to Egypt. After arriving in Egypt, the defendants took the victim to Yemen, where she was held in Yemen against her will for over 1 year. While in Yemen, the victim was held captive by her family. She was denied freedom of movement. She could not access her U.S. passport. She had no money. She was denied freedom to communicate with persons outside of her family. She was physically assaulted by Khalid Abu غانم, and she lived under the threat of further harm. Because of the restrictions on the movement of women in the Houthi-controlled part of Yemen where the victim was held, the victim was not allowed to travel freely, and she was unable to travel beyond short errands without a male escort. As a result, from the time the victim was tricked by her family into traveling to Egypt and to her eventual return to the United States, her family exercised complete and total control over her. It was clear that the victim's life was in danger while she was in Yemen. Beyond the actual harm she suffered, there were further threats to harm her and even threats to kill her. However, these threats were not realized because of the unwavering and the excellent work of law enforcement, including the FBI JTTF Joint Terrorism Task Force, the work of the United States Diplomatic Security Service, and the work of Customs and Border Protection. A plan was put together to stay in touch with the victim while she was in Yemen, without her family's knowledge that she was in touch with U.S. law enforcement. I must also acknowledge the great work and dedicated work of people in this office, especially the primary trial attorneys in this case, Maeve Huggins and Charlie Crewley, who worked diligently with law enforcement to get the victim back to the United States from Yemen, to gather the evidence necessary and needed to successfully prosecute this case and to protect the victim as the case went through the court process. Maeve and Charlie went above and beyond to ensure justice for this victim, to ensure justice for the United States. They worked weekends, evenings, and holidays. They traveled across the country to meet with witnesses, keeping the victim informed of the status of the case and ensuring that the evidence of these crimes were properly relayed to the jury. There is nothing more important that this office does than being responsive to victims of crimes, such as the victim here in this case, and to uphold the laws of the United States, and in this case, to ensure that no American citizen is kidnapped and held against their will outside of this country or elsewhere. This team worked together and justice was served as a result of their efforts. And now I'll turn the podium over to FBI ASAC, Kristen Perino.
Good afternoon. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Buffalo Field Office. Today is just not about the guilty verdict, but but it highlights the bravery of a victim coming forward and sharing her story, especially when that voice was once taken away. This verdict is a direct result of the strong investigative work conducted by the FBI, U.S. Department of State's Diplomatic Security Service, and Customs and Border Patrol. The FBI values all of our partnerships with federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies, which are all paramount. The FBI prioritizes the protection of civil rights and safety of American citizens, as demonstrated in this case. We remain committed to protecting victims and encourage anyone in need of help to contact the FBI by calling 1-800-CALL-FBI, online at tips.fbi.gov, or call your local field office.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Sussman. I'm the Diplomatic Security Special Agent assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force here in Buffalo. Today's guilty verdict against Adham and Khaalid Abu Ghanam was a long time coming for all of us gathered here. I'd like to recognize the close collaboration between the Diplomatic Security Service, the Western District of New York U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and the Lackawanna Police Department. The results here today would not have occurred without the seamless cooperation of all our federal, state, and local partners. Thank you.
All right, any questions? I knew it.
Could the Lackawanna Police Department and University of Buffalo officials have done more when they were involved in this?
I believe they did what they could under the circumstances with the knowledge that they had at that time.
Could you possibly speak to the uniqueness of the verdict and the speed of it, I suppose? Because I had multiple people when I knew they said I was coming to this press conference, that they were surprised, I guess, that a verdict had come back so soon. So whether if that speaks to the strength of the evidence or if in any way you care to comment on that.
So it's very difficult to comment on that because we don't know what the deliberations were of the jury. But what I will say is that I had an Ace Dynamite dedicated team to this case who spent years making sure that the evidence was gathered, that the evidence was put together, and that the evidence was properly presented to the jury. So I want to give a lot of credit to Maeve and to Charlie for the work that they did on this case, to Ed. They had this case from the beginning when the victim was still being held against her will in Yemen. They managed to use the resources that we had to get her back to the United States, and from that point forward, they gathered the evidence, they presented the evidence, but so far as why the jury came back as quickly as they did, what their deliberations were, I don't know, but I will say that this team did an absolutely outstanding job.
It's a real intriguing case. How would you have been able to prosecute this case without the participation of the victim?
No.
Tell me a little bit about how that worked. How did you guys get in touch with her? How would she get in touch with you guys?
So I'm going to let Charlie talk about the specifics of that part of the case.
Sure.
The FBI was able to communicate with the victim while she was in Yemen because a nonprofit organization called Unchained at Last, as well as other individuals, managed to smuggle a cell phone to her in Yemen, and using that cell phone, the victim was able to communicate with Agent Sussman and tell him what had happened to her over the last year or so. And from that, we were able to begin our investigation and ultimately prosecute and try this case.